Again, this is a very, very dangerous situation, a tornado emergency. But this is an observed tornado. This is an observed tornado.
Further in the street, all you see is apartments down.
What do you do from here?
Try to pick up all the aftermath.
Good evening from the Jefferson City Memorial Airport, where 1 year ago this airfield was about 48 hours away from being underwater. Ordinarily, that would be the weather story of the year, but not last year. Mother Nature had something else up her sleeve. On May 22nd, 2019, one of the worst storms ever to hit the capital city tore through town, but not before ravaging another small community about a half hour down the road. Over the next hour, we'll look back on that night and the days that followed and how they changed the perspectives of a lot of people. We'll begin tonight with KRCG 13 Chief Meteorologist Zach Paul.
And what had been an active week of severe storms already, we'd also been preparing for major flooding along the Missouri River and its surrounding tributaries. But as you might remember, on this night 1 year ago, the major flooding became a secondary story. At 10:56 p.m. on May 22nd, 2019, a tornado touched down just west of the Eldon Golf Club and damaged numerous homes across the southern and eastern sections of Eldon. The tornado then tracked northeast, crossing Highway 54 twice and uprooted or snapped numerous trees. As the tornado entered into Cole County, it crossed Lake Carmel and tore the roof off of a one-story home as it strengthened to an EF2 tornado. The tornado strengthened from an EF2 to an EF3 as it moved into a subdivision off a heritage highway just west of US Highway 54. And as that tornado continued to move northeast in the Jefferson City area, it destroyed or greatly damaged many well-made commercial and residential structures. After it crossed the Missouri River, it lifted and dissipated near Railwood Golf Club. Overall, the tornado was rated an EF3 tornado with an estimated wind speed of around 160 miles per hour, a path length of over 32 miles, and at its maximum width was at 1,500 yards. Again, just upgraded to tornado emergency. Again, this is imminent danger. Again, imminent threat for Jefferson City. This is potentially the worst severe weather I've ever covered.
A lot of the people that we've talked to have just been in complete disbelief. A lot of them still in shock. This awning is completely wrapped around this car. Damage to the windshields, completely damaged. Most of the awning on this break time is actually, it's broken down. Can fly around in the air. This completely went through this windshield here. Had somebody been in this car, they would have gotten seriously injured. So that just to show you those forceful winds.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but this building right behind me, the entire front part of it has been completely removed from this storm damage. You can see the entire inside is very, very open here. The whole front of this building completely came off.
There is tornado damage in and near Jefferson City, but it looks like some people are in need of help, so I'm going to go help them.
Across the street, this is near South Elementary in Eldon. This is a baseball complex here, and just a lot of damage here to what appears to be a grandstand, maybe a concession stand area there.
There's food signs knocked down, road signs knocked down, power lines just snapped into two. I mean, it's just absolutely, I just can't believe anything like this is happening. I actually even stopped by the local Walmart over there on Stadium Boulevard, and one of the employees told me that she saw at least 15 families tonight come in and just in absolute shambles, said they've lost everything in their home.
Confirmed fatalities from this storm, confirmed fatalities, but there have been people hurt, there have been people taken to the hospital. I'm looking. In many ways, Zach Paul was the voice of the tornado. He tracked the storm hours before that tornado warning was first issued for Eldon, Missouri, and he provided hours of uninterrupted coverage of the braking situation through the night and into the next day. He says most of it now is just a blur.
It was tough. As you know, I've spent almost 20 years here. Again, this is imminent danger. Again, imminent threat for Jefferson City. You need to get into your basements when it's moving into your town and it's your home and it's your friends and it's your family. and it's your community that you know is right in the middle of that, it's a whole other process. Knowing that it was going right through the middle of Jeff City, it was the heaviest situation that I've ever been in as a broadcaster. This might be the worst I've seen. This might be the worst night of severe weather coverage. It sank in when I first saw the tornado emergency tagline that this was real. At 40 miles per hour, this isn't a tornado emergency. Again, just upgraded to tornado emergency. And not just real in the sense, I've covered hundreds of tornadoes. But knowing what the emergency tagline means in these warnings carries its own weight if you're a broadcaster or a forecaster and what that terminology means. This storm is strong. It has picked up some debris and it is moving it all and through that thunderstorm itself. Again, if you're in Jefferson City, you need to get into a basement. I cannot stress this. I cannot urge this enough. Until afterwards, and it was when we had Elise out covering, and we pulled up her Facebook Live video and we started showing her Facebook video, and that was the first time that I got to see any kind of damage that had happened through Jefferson City. We have been able to capture some video. I warn you, I have not seen this, but this is some damage that Elise Smith was able to get some video from Jefferson City here a little bit ago.
Hello, everyone. This is meteorologist Elise Smith here. Hello. Good morning. Good morning.
And my heart sank anyway when I knew we had this tornado warning, but when you can actually see the devastation immediately afterwards, I knew that this was catastrophic. My mind immediately went to our people. Are people okay? It's hard as a meteorologist and as a broadcaster when you see those images to kind of put up a wall and block that because you have a job to do. And so it was honestly, it was when I went home, when I finally got home the next morning at about 7 o'clock and I was able to lay down and sort of take a nap, that's when the reality of this situation had really hit. The majority of people that I've talked to after the fact all took shelter. They knew this was coming, and that just goes to show you as a broadcaster and a meteorologist that the information got out there and people understood what was potentially coming. Granted, we weren't able to avoid complete injury out of this, as there was dozens of injuries that were reported. But as far as casualties, this is one of the better storms and better situations or outcomes that you could expect from that. So yeah, I'm completely shocked that it wasn't worse, but at the same time, I feel very blessed to know that people took the information and the warning serious.
Zach's right. It is a miracle no fatalities resulted from the EF3 graded storm. In the days and weeks that followed, KRCG was flooded with thank yous and well wishes from the community, many of them for Zach's efforts keeping people safe. He received several awards and recognitions in the months that followed, including a Heroes of the Storm award presented by Jefferson City Mayor Carrie Turgeon. Zach and 20 others from the community were honored for their part in protecting the lives of people in Jefferson City and the region.
No matter the situation, KRCG 13 has you covered. Covering you then.
Need to get into your basements now.
But this is some very, very visual damage.
Covering you now.
The Department of Health and Senior Services has set guidelines.
Leaving many unable to get those essential items.
Covering you always.
Following a developing story this evening.
2020 recipient of a Regional Murrow Award for breaking news. We are KRCG 13.
Last year's tornado came through right in between the state high school track and field championships here at Adkins Stadium. Classes 1 and 2 went on as scheduled the weekend before, but classes 3, 4, and 5 never happened here. The Licklider track was all set for that weekend of track, but instead they were moved to 3 other locations. After the damage to Adkins Stadium press box, the track equipment was thrown all around the stadium. That was bad enough, but across Jackson Street, total devastation. These homes were leveled from Union Street down to Case Avenue, all the way down to Stadium Boulevard. Roofs blown off, huge trees down, house after house, family after family. Absolute devastation. Unbelievably, everyone here lived through it. Nothing short of a miracle. I spoke with many, including Annette Kohler, who lived right here on the corner of Case and Jackson. She was in the basement as her roof was blown off.
I need a place to stay. I have nothing. These my brother's clothes. I had only my gown and my house shoes on. I still got the house shoes, but I have nothing.
1 year later, many of these homes have been leveled. Some are still standing, but something good out of something so bad could result. 45 properties here have been purchased by the Jefferson City School District.
When we were first approached by some landowners to ask if we had any interest in purchasing the land after the tornado or their homes, we were very sensitive to that. And so we tried approaching that very delicately. We appreciate our community. We believe we're stronger together. So we did then send out a letter to ask if there was any interest. And honestly, the response was a little bit more than we anticipated.
Only 4 homes have not been purchased yet. Dr. Linthicum says there's no timetable and no pressure for those owners. Someday, this land that was devastated by the 2019 tornado could be used for the students at Jefferson City High School. Soccer fields or baseball and softball fields, tennis courts could be built here, where about 45 to 50 homes once stood with families. Something good out of something that happened that was so bad.
Last year, we brought you to this very same spot where many Eldon residents took shelter the night of the tornado. Now, 1 year later, we're revisiting the same place and talking about what safety precautions are being taken, as well as what financial assistance is still available.
That night is one I'll never forget. I'll tell you that much.
City of Eldon Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director Randy Vernon says it's hard to believe the tornado was 1 year ago.
I've lived here for 58 years, and this is probably one of the most devastating things I've seen in the community that I can remember.
Eldon has 4 safe storm shelters, 3 at churches, 1 at the local school. Last year, we spoke with Lindsay Prater, one of about 50 Eldon residents who took shelter at the school.
If I could go back now, I would do it. I would do it the same. I probably would have come over earlier, actually.
But with COVID-19 in the picture, distancing may pose a challenge in the case of another emergency.
It's going to be tough if we have a major storm and we have to put people in the storm shelter. We're a small community, so it's hard to get somebody that can actually man the shelter.
Vernon praises his emergency response team, but says he would do one thing differently when it comes to FEMA documentation, saying he is still working on paperwork from last year.
I would try to set up somehow of keeping better track of resources and paperwork.
The Eldon Ministerial Alliance is another financial resource still available to help Eldon residents who have been impacted by the tornado.
There are 8 to 10 of us that work together with each other and see that we can do more collaboratively than we can individually.
So far, Treasurer Reverend Bill Fogelsong says they've received more than $39,000 in donations to help those who have been affected, and money is still available to help.
I've seen as little as a pair of shoes that needed to be bought, and as much as a $1,200 car payment.
A community stronger than ever, thanks to neighbors helping neighbors.
That's probably the biggest thing I've seen is the volunteerism and community coming together. It taught me a lot of lessons, but yet I saw how a community can come together and prevail.
Anyone in need of assistance should go to the Eldon Ministerial Alliance Facebook page. For more information, head to our website, krcgtv.com. For now, reporting in Eldon, Lexi Petrovich, KRCG 13.
May 22nd, 2019. Severe storms strike mid-Missouri. Our first response to alert you.
But this is a observed tornado.
To protect.
There is severe damage here.
To help save lives.
There could be gas leaks.
Now our job is to support the first responders' cleanup and relief efforts.
We are searching for people.
KRCG 13 News. Together we stand mid-Missouri strong. Two of the on-air people you know well remember May 22nd, 2019 vividly. The following morning, they spent hours informing the public about what had happened the night before. Here are Elizabeth Hoffman and Dick Preston.
But I mean, it was not that kind of situation. They just said, go in the studio and start doing the, because we were live. We'd been on all night, of course, after Zach Paul had prepared everybody. Then he saved a lot of people, I think, because the timing was just right, and people watched and knew what was going on. So I came in here, and Kermit Miller was on the air, filling people in, and after about 10 minutes, I realized what was going on, and I got a few notes, and I came out here, and Kermit and I went until about 4:30, and then when you came on, too.
Right. And I remember getting the phone call. Of course, we were doing the morning show anyway, but I got a phone call right about midnight. Our news director, Maria Miller, called me at midnight, and I was completely out of it. And she said, Liz, we've had a tornado, and this is very serious. I need you to wake up and get here just as soon as you can. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I made the trip here, and I first went to my sister's house in Jefferson City to check up on everything. It was totally dark there, and everything looked fine, but what was crazy is just 1 block away, I couldn't drive any further because there was a tree down, and then you started seeing all of the destruction and damage, and it was just really something to see and something I'll never forget.
Our meteorologist, Elise Smith, hadn't been here all that long, and she happened to live in the neighborhood very close to where that damage came through. And she ended up, reporting and showing much of the damage out there along Ellis Boulevard.
Right, and that was where I tried to drive to, but then that's when I saw all of the lights, and you weren't allowed to go any further.
Yeah, she was kind of in the middle of all that.
Yeah, she definitely was.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get here, and yeah, everything was already well into force. We were, like you said, we were going live. And then I joined you on air. And
well, we say it's the morning news, but there was nothing normal about anything that we did.
No.
We just stayed on the air completely until, we went right into the new news. And so I was done at 12:30, but I'd been on the air for 9 straight hours, a little more than 9 straight hours. I've never done that before. I've done elections where we were on quite a long time, but nothing like this.
And we were seeing it on the screen for the first time, just like our viewers were.
Yeah, we were telling people what we knew and what we didn't know as well, actually. And I think that helped too. And just to put it in perspective where the damage was, and a little historical information that we also knew that we could add to it.
And I think that's where a lot of you knowing the area so well and covering the news in mid-Missouri for so long, you were pointing out pictures, video, as we were looking at it, you would say, oh, well, that's that business.
Yeah, I could kind of figure it out.
That's that street. And I think it was really helpful to me, myself, and probably our viewers as well.
You had to have some perspective and know, put the information together that was coming in. That's true.
Absolutely.
So we were a definite team, that's for sure.
And it was a long process.
The majority of Jefferson City residents that are just waking up to find out what has happened overnight.
But this house right here has completely lost its roof to the house. It's completely open. You can see through the window where those winds knocked out the windows, knocked out the roof, all over the ground. There are parts of trees, there are signs, and one of the most visual and graphic things that you can see here are toys, kids' toys.
Now the sun is just rising, and this is the first time that a lot of the authorities and the emergency personnel here can fully see the scope of all the damage after that confirmed tornado ripped through here.
Multiple injuries that were reported over the night, and still trying to assess the damage.
The daybreak is just now starting to happen. We have personnel from all disciplines of emergency services here helping us.
We're now starting to see a lot more of the damage that last night's storms caused here in Eldon, and about a block away from Eldon Drive-In. So to give you an idea of how far this sign traveled from Eldon Drive-In to land right here, gives you an idea of how far debris was tossed.
We're going to get a better look at that building, that structure that I was talking about. Just look how it's just ripped to absolute shreds.
We only have 20 people reported injured right now, and no deaths in this area. The authorities are going to go door to door starting in just a few minutes, they said, and checking on all these facilities. This is the back of the buildings there on East Capitol, and we're still on Lafayette, as you can there.
Thank God that my wife and daughter weren't still in this bed.
When we come back, we just came back to seeing all this. Try to pick up all the aftermath because there's 2 trailers that we actually have here.
So it's cleanup time is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I can vividly remember getting that phone call around 1:30 in the morning after the tornado came through and devastated both Eldon and Jefferson City. I was called in to work after really working a full sports shift the day before. I ended up spending most of the next 9-10 hours in Eldon surveying the damage there. It was incredible to see everything that happened. I ran into a local basketball coach who I've known for years. He and his family were able to get out of their house, fortunately, just in the nick of time.
But you should be in your shelters. Eldon, you should be in your shelter.
Eldon resident Galen Hayes was watching KRCG 13's tornado coverage the night of May 22nd. Hayes, his wife, and 2 children took shelter in the basement at his parents' house across town.
We grabbed the kids out of bed, put their flip-flops on, wrapped blankets around them, and we jumped in our Nissan and we took off.
Around 10 minutes later, their home took a direct hit, resulting in massive damage.
It hit me right when I stepped in my back door and realized half our roof was gone. And I just stood there, and my first thought was, man, how is this going to affect my wife and my kids? They're going to be devastated.
Hayes took me to his house later the next morning. I interviewed him live inside his bedroom, which no longer had a roof.
Thank God that my wife and daughter weren't still in this bed when this hit. I'm used to doing interviews on the basketball court, not from my bedroom.
Fortunately for the Hayes family, the story has a happy ending. Galen and his family moved into a new house about 2 months after the storm. As for their old home, his parents now live there. His dad is a veteran contractor and gave the house new life.
The upgrades that we were able to make through this process, it's mind-boggling, really. It's really been really good for my parents, been really good for us.
Hayes credits having a plan for getting his family out of what could have been a deadly situation.
We had a plan, and I would urge everybody, and you hear people say this all the time, have a plan. Sit down right now. If you're watching this interview, sit down with your family. Talk about what you would do if the sirens go up.
Some fantastic advice. Have a plan. In this case, it very well could have been life-saving. And as it turns out, the story had a great ending for Galen Hayes and his family.
A year ago today, this area was completely destroyed. And just like we were here all throughout the night bringing you live reports from the ground, so was Cole County Deputy Joey Mathern, helping anyone who needed it. And many people did that night. What many don't know is that Mathern was caught right in the middle of that tornado and made it out alive. Here's his story from May 22nd, 2019.
6710, I got really strong winds. I can't keep my vehicle on the road.
It started out just like any other storm, you know, it was raining, it was a little windy.
The experience Cole County Deputy Joey Mathern had 1 year ago today has changed his life forever. When he reported for duty, he thought it'd be like any other day.
we started getting reports of the tornado in Eldon and the damage along along 54. So we got a little closer to 54, and we were kind of monitoring the situation.
At first, it seemed to him as if Cole County would be spared.
It got really calm, like it quit raining, the wind quit. I had my windows down on my patrol car. It was actually pretty nice outside. And I thought, maybe the worst is over.
Mathern's recordings with dispatch show the serenity he describes changing in an instant.
It happened so fast, it got pretty chaotic. All I could hear was a deep growl, like a whistling, growling sound. I could see stuff flying through the air like debris.
And before Mathern knew it,
Tornado, I'm in the middle of a tornado right now.
Then when I felt the car kind of tip to the right and then it tipped to the left, I was like, holy cow, I'm in the air.
For those moments, Mathern says his mind raced.
In my mind, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew it was coming and they got to safety. And then it immediately flipped to my family, like, oh, am I ever going to see my family again? Like, how am I ever going to tell my wife and my kids, that I love them one more time?
The wind slowed down, and Mathern says he drove away unscathed and ready to help whoever needed it. But later that night, it all set in.
Seeing all the damage to my car and all the damage in the community, really like, holy cow, I'm lucky. I can't believe that I survived that.
Serving as a forever reminder of just how quickly everything can change.
I drive through the area where I got hit by the tornado almost every day that I work. I look at the trees that are still down, and you can see the line in the trees where the tornado came through. And it still is just kind of a surreal feeling of, I just cannot believe that I made it through that.
Deputy Mathern says his story joins the countless others of survival during a tornado unlike any other Jefferson City has ever seen. In Jefferson City, I'm Gladys Bautista.
No matter the situation, KRCG 13 has you covered. Covering you then.
Need to get into your basements now.
But this is some very, very visual damage.
Covering you now.
The Department of Health and Senior Services has set guidelines.
Leaving many unable to get those essential items.
Though small in size, it would be difficult to find a bigger cheerleader for Jefferson City than its homegrown mayor. Carrie Turgeon was watching KRCG 13 when the tornado barreled through, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. Her reflections on the city's resilience and determination then and now.
We noticed the damage and the loss, but then you realize that, like, we're okay, like, we're still here to talk about it, so we're all right. I mean, when you were on there forecasting, I was tuning in and thinking, oh my gosh, and I could hear it in your voice.
You're in Jefferson City, you need to head to your basements, you need to get to your shelters, you need to go, you need to get there.
This is really bad, and then you see it and it's really bad, but you know what, we all are around now to see it, and I'd rather have us all around to see the damage and figure it out than have to mourn the loss of a person rather than a building.
I don't know how many times I thought how thankful that we did not have more injuries. I mean, you look at the buildings and you think, how on earth did we come out of this as a community?
Every home here has suffered significant damage.
And have so few people with injuries or worse. We're so thankful. And really the reason why is because it very much advanced warning. Zach Paul was out there way ahead telling us exactly what to do.
Cannot make this more urgent. You need to get into your basements. This is moving right through the middle of the city.
Life is so precious, and we just saw that during the tornado. I mean, we went through that moment of realizing that things are just things. That's not what matters. What matters is people, our family, our friends.
Not knowing and hearing, that, what had happened in the dark of night. That was the hardest moment that I've had to deal with as mayor, but then instantly everybody kicked in, and so then it's kind of made what was the most challenging moment become some of the most rewarding things that I think we've ever seen.
I think we've shown time and time again just how strong our community is, that when we do work together, that we can be strong and we can get through it.
The winds were strong, but we're stronger. Firmly believe those challenges are what really make us a better community.
I had been watching Zach's forecast, but I didn't realize 30 miles up the highway what I'd be driving into. The damage was horrific, especially once daylight surfaced and you could actually see it. And being from mid-Missouri, I had never seen anything like this before. However, through it all, I met some amazing people out in the Jefferson City and Eldon communities, some who still keep in touch. So many people managed to smile through this tough time, even those who were displaced for several days, like Tracy Gretsch.
Everything you own is material. You don't need it. If you lose it all, it can be replaced. Lives can't be replaced.
This is the place Tracy Gretsch used to call home until the night of May 22nd. An EF1 tornado touched down in Eldon, displacing Tracy and many others throughout the community.
The roof was ripped off.
That night, Tracy knew there wasn't any time to waste once hearing the warning.
Again, if you're in the Eldon area, you want to make sure you're in your storm cellar.
I took cover about 45 minutes before by watching the news and when they had the radar and the way it was heading. So I was probably in my bathroom 45 minutes before it hit.
She says she didn't have a severe weather plan in place, but she knew she needed to get herself and her dog Max to the safest place in her apartment.
So we had the couch cushions and the futon mattress over us in the bathtub.
Prior to the May 22nd tornado, Tracy says she felt she wasn't properly prepared, but now that has all changed.
It's important to watch the weather channels, to have a weather radio. I have one now. My cell phone is now set up for weather alerts and things where it wasn't before.
Since relocating to a new city and a new apartment, Tracy now has a solid severe weather plan, and she recommends you create a plan too. The plan should outline where you and your family will go in case of severe weather or any emergency. Underneath her bathroom sink, she keeps a case of water, snacks, dog food, and a bag packed with necessities such as changes of clothes and shoes, just in case something like that happens again.
And I was one of those that thought it would never happen. Well, it does when you least expect it.
Now we're weathering a different type of storm, but I'll still say we're all in this together.
No matter the situation, KRCG 13 has you covered. Covering you then.
Need to get into your basements now.
But this is some very, very visual damage.
Covering you now.
The Department of Health and Senior Services has set guidelines.
Leaving many unable to get those essential items.
Covering you always.
Following a developing story this evening.
2020 recipient of a Regional Murrow Award for breaking news. We are KRCG 13.
Jefferson City strong and Riley strong. Together, 1 year after the tornado, they remain strong. This is a family-owned dealership, Riley Automotive, built in 1936. That's when it started. The Toyota store still stands strong. However, over on the other side, you can see where the old Chevrolet building has been taken down. That took a direct hit by the tornado. Built back in 1970, it stood for 50 years. If all goes well, it should be back up for business in about 10 months. More than 750 cars on the lot totaled. This was the scene just a few days later. Cars were tossed around like play toys, stacked on top of one another. The cost, about $28 million.
You know, I try to keep from being emotional, but it was pretty tough. And we started walking around with flashlights, and it became a real long next 24 hours, you know, trying to get a grip on it and try to figure out where we were going from here, and calling the employees and seeing if people were good, okay, tell them not to come out, but things are bad, things are real bad, and then just getting the chin up in the air and let's go. Let's try to figure this thing out. I don't think my grandfather or my dad, I know for a fact they didn't go through this, but I know that they're praying for us, and we got a lot of people from all around the Midwest that called and texted and emailed and offered help and prayers, and it was really awesome.
As Kevin and his brothers Kerry and Mike say, you can replace cars. You can't replace people. More than 150 employees work for Riley Automotive. Thankfully, they weren't here when the tornado passed. It came right over that house, the farmhouse there. Before barreling through the Riley Automotive Group buildings and lots, the tornado hit the nearly brand new Special Olympics Training for Life Center in Jefferson City. The building was less than a year old, finished in September of 2018. This was the view of the tornado from the security camera in the entryway. Devastating look at what caused nearly $5 million worth of damage.
I was stepping over light poles and then got to the front entrance right here, and the flagpole was snapped in half, literally laying down, and I'm thinking, I'm stepping over the flagpole. Oh my gosh. And then it was just kind of surreal, but walking through the lobby, the trees and the debris and gravel, rocks everywhere. And our team, we rally around each other, and the community rallied around us, and we felt all that support. By 10 o'clock the next morning, we had a plan. We had a place to move temporarily, had a warehouse that was donated, had a semi-truck that was donated, and had close to 100 volunteers that said, we'll be there tomorrow. Get boxes, get people. We're coming to move you out.
This has to be one of the most encouraging sights 1 year after the tornado. The field has been repaired and replaced. It is ready for athletes, and if all goes well, sometime next week, this building could be open for business again. And really, it's about the athletes that get a chance to enjoy this wonderful facility again 1 year later.
CDC officials say last year's tornado season claimed the lives of 41 Americans and injured hundreds more. More than 70% of those victims were in a mobile home or trailer park at the time of the tornado. Twin Bridges Mobile Home Park became a pile of rubble after a tornado ripped through the Jefferson City area in May of last year. Cindy Middlecamp lives in a subdivision next to the trailer park and remembers the roar of the tornado.
We were upstairs and it was a sound that you'd never heard, but it was just eerie and you knew that it wasn't good. So my husband and I ran down the stairs to the basement.
Bulldozers flattened what was left of the Twin Bridges Mobile Home Park. Construction crews plan to use the area as a temporary asphalt storage area for a nearby highway resurfacing project scheduled for this summer. To stay safe during a tornado, CDC officials want you to prepare a plan, have an emergency kit with food and water, stay aware of weather conditions, and always protect your head from flying debris. Boone County Assistant Fire Chief Gail Blumenkamp says you should never stay inside a mobile home during a tornado.
Contrary to normal people's way of thinking, I'm inside a structure, I'm going to be safer inside than outside. That's not true. So you need to get out, you need to seek a low-lying area.
Some mobile home parks have a community storm shelter. If a shelter is not available, people living in mobile homes should have a plan to go to the nearest underground shelter, such as the basement of a family member or friend. Mark Slavitt, KRCG 13.
When disaster strikes, KRCG 13 has you covered during the storm.
I cannot make this more urgent.
Tornado affected areas.
Potentially the worst severe weather I've ever covered.
After the storm.
This is some very, very visual damage.
It's just unbelievable, honestly.
One of the worst damaged homes.
And always.
More storms are possible. Live report with an update.
It's going to be a story all summer.
Keeping you and your family safe.
Got to give a big shout out to Zach Paul.
KRCG 13 has you covered.
Former KRCG 13 meteorologist Elise Smith was among the very first people on the scene after the tornado moved through. She was the first area broadcaster to report live on the damage and talk to victims. While she has moved on to Buffalo, New York, she did sit down with us to describe her recollections and emotions 1 year later.
I get chills thinking about it, and I get choked up still.
I was one of the first people on the scene here in Christie Drive tonight, and what we can describe the scene is as chaos. That's what a state trooper told me when I first arrived here.
At first, my mind was racing, just, like, I have to get this out here. I have to send something on social media. I have to tell people that there is damage. We were hit by a possible tornado. And it was very overwhelming, but I remember going up to a police officer who just got there. And, I asked him, like, what can I do? What should I do? Like, is everything okay? Is everyone okay? And he just said, stay in your lane. We're going to take care of what we need to take care of. You take care of what you need to take care of. And that just kind of grounded me and set the tone, and I was able to do my job then. I was able to get on Facebook and do a Facebook Live video showing the damage, confirming the damage. I was able to tweet things, and this was, right around midnight, right when we all started to realize that Jeff City was hit by a tornado.
From what I know from a weather standpoint, this does look like tornado damage, and from what we knew on the radar signature, this could be potential tornado damage here in Jefferson City.
Like when I said tornado for the first time, like Jefferson City was hit by a tornado, like tornado came out like with, kind of like a, like, oh yeah, it's real. It was a lot to process, especially, going into that day and that night. You knew the potential was there. It's just, even as a meteorologist, you don't think that your town is going to be hit by a tornado.
And it looks like there is tornado damage. I just talked with someone from law enforcement, and there is tornado damage right over there.
And Jefferson City is now known as, one of the best weather-ready communities across the country. Like, it sounds silly, but you have to practice a severe weather safety plan. Like, you have to know where that room is in your home and have maybe practiced it once. It takes a minute, 30 seconds even. But that, in many cases, was the difference in saving lives in Jefferson City.
Anyone who has spent more than 5 minutes in the Midwest knows that severe storms, tornadoes, are a way of life. And compared to the devastation and the human loss in the Joplin tornado 9 years ago tonight, well, the one in Jefferson City was small potatoes. But it was an experience virtually unprecedented here, and it now stands as the benchmark for storm awareness and preparation going forward. Certainly no one who experienced it will ever forget it. Thanks for watching.
No matter the situation, KRCG 13 has you covered. Covering you then.
Need to get into your basements now.
But this is some very, very visual damage.
Covering you now.
The Department of Health and Senior Services has set guidelines.
Leaving many unable to get those essential items.
Covering you always.
Following a developing story this evening.
2020 recipient of a Regional Murrow Award for breaking news. We are KRCG 13.